The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
How long before a body starts to smell? At 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m., he searched how to embalm a body. At 5:47 a.m., 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to.
Today, jury selection begins in Brian Walshe's murder trial, and so far, it's his mother's devotion that's taking center stage. We'll talk about it. Plus, an Indiana shooting is sparking a stand your ground defense. A homeowner accused of manslaughter after shooting a cleaning lady who went to the wrong home. Also this hour, jury selection is underway for the alleged lip filler child killer, defendant Maya Hernandez. We're spotlighting who is the ideal juror. And a man is standing trial for brutally killing a Georgia firefighter and his wife in their new home. His brother fatally stabbed a Pentagon officer. So is this just a coincidence? It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Tuesday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Are you ready for some coffee and some court? That's what I like to say this program's all about. We get you all warmed up and ready to go for the big day ahead on Court TV Live. And what a big show we have planned. Let's get it started. Grab that cup of coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. What a big mama's boy. Convicted fraudster and accused killer Brian Walshe appears to be a big mama's boy. And it's a good thing, too, because if he's sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison, his mama will surely come visit him. On Monday, his mama was blowing kisses at her homicide defendant's son as he was exiting the courtroom, heading back to the county jail where he's been awaiting his trial. His face was glowing as he nods and smiles at his mommy while she sends him those kisses. How sweet. You know, Mom was also sent out of the hearing for a time as she may be a trial witness because she apparently hired a private investigator to look into Brian's wife, Anna, presumably in an effort to help her beloved son. Ah, mother's love knows no boundaries, right? Well, here the allegation is that this son murdered his wife, Anna, and then dismembered her body and disposed of it. Those are the allegations. Now, let's be clear. This big mama's boy is selective, too. He doesn't want the prosecutors to tell the jury what a loving mother his wife, Anna, was to their 3 young sons. Why? If he didn't kill her, why wouldn't he want the jury to know how wonderful of a mother she was? I do know this. Those precious boys deserved far better. And their grandmother better wake up and look at the case evidence that implicates her special boy. That's my opening statement on this Tuesday morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
And as I peeked in, I saw this.
Take your time. Take your time.
I saw that they weren't okay. And when I saw that, I'd already kind of got into cop mode.
In Georgia, we got the testimony resuming in the murder trial for defendant Matthew Lands. This guy's accused of shooting and killing Justin and Amber Hicks inside of their brand new home. Court's going to resume at 9 a.m. Eastern time. My friends, we're going to go in there live together when things kick off. In Massachusetts, we've got a motions hearing scheduled for Lindsay Clancy today. Remember her? This is happening at 10 a.m. Eastern time. She is the mother accused of strangling to death her 3 young sons. And in Colorado, we've got sentencing for Darren Thrailkill set for today at 3 p.m. Eastern. This guy convicted of killing his girlfriend's 6-year-old son, Martin. He's facing a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Right now, let's take you to your top story on this Tuesday morning, the murder trial of Brian Walshe. Jury selection beginning this morning for the accused killer. Prosecutors say that he murdered and dismembered his wife, Anna. Now, her body has never been found, and we do know that he's got support from his mom. mommy, Diane, who was in court on Monday during his final pretrial hearing. Diane Walshe, you see right there, looks a lot like her son, doesn't she? She allegedly hired a private investigator to look into Brian's wife, Anna, the mother of her grandchildren. So she could become a case witness. Prosecutors say they plan to introduce evidence as proof that Brian suspected his wife was having an affair. We've heard talk about this, but apparently he must have talked about it with mom, right? Well, his defense team argues that he had no knowledge that his mother had hired the private investigator, and the attorneys argued about some text messages too. Take a listen.
Why are they seeking to put this text message history in? They're putting it in because they want to wave it around and say she was having an affair and he knew and he killed her. That's what they want to do. And I think if there was actual evidence or proof, other than speculation, that he had seen these messages, was angry about them, we'd be in a different posture. But that is not the case. And so why are they trying to put them in? And hearsay, her messages, her statements are hearsay. So what other purpose is it coming in for?
More to follow on this as to individual text messages, and I want you to be focused on whether or not they are being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, and if they are, what your positions are, and see if you can make some headway on this.
So the opening statements are set to kick off on December 1st. So they're going to pick the jury and then enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday, and then it's time to get down to business. So let's talk a bit about the trial and the relationship between Brian Walshe and his mom, Diane. Let's bring in our guest in the studio with me. I have attorney Lisa Bonner, and joining me remotely, attorney Rick Grundy. Great to have you both on this Tuesday. So let's start with mom and son. Lisa, what do you make of this relationship?
It's a very interesting mommy-son relationship, and the mother is doing the mama bear thing. She is jumping in to protect her son, and she apparently, it looks like they did speak, right? And it looks like he was confiding in his mother, which is a little odd because if you talk to most men, they don't really talk to their mother about their marital issues. So that just also, you know, had a very strange, lends itself to a very strange dynamic between them. And she went in and started doing what mama bears do, and let me help you, let me get into this and see if I can uncover something. And she took it upon herself, allegedly, to hire an investigator to look into this, which is a little odd.
Right, Lisa. And so let's talk about how the prosecutors may use mommy as the witness. Rick Grundy, you happen to have served in this county where this trial is taking place as the head of the homicide unit. So talk to me here. What do you think about mom? Are you calling her if it's your case?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's good information there to show, you know, I think the defense is going to try and dirty up the victim here and say there's no body been found in this. And they're going to try and push a agenda that she maybe took off and you don't have proof beyond a reasonable doubt that she's even dead. So to the extent that they are engaging an investigator to try and get evidence to dirty her up, definitely is going to be help along those lines. There's a mountain of evidence against this individual. So it's a situation where the defense is going to throw up whatever they can. From what I've heard, you may want to, if I'm the judge, have a voir dire of the mother and see what she has to say with respect to these text messages and the private investigator and her correspondence and discussions with her son as to whether there's a reasonable belief that he would have had knowledge of these. That is a bridge that they're going to have to cross, I think, to get this evidence in. But I got to tell you, don't get distracted as the prosecution, because, again, they're going to be reaching for the fruit at the outer edge of the limbs here because they have a very strong case against them.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that, Rick. Lisa, tell me, do you agree in terms of the evidence against Mr. Brian Walshe?
I do. Apparently, they found a hacksaw with bone fragments. They found a blood-stained knife near his home. And so that does lend itself to the fact that he was allegedly involved in this. And they, again, it is the defense's duty to shed reasonable doubt on this. All they have to do is convince one juror that he might not have been involved. So they're going to be reaching for everything that they can because the evidence against Brian Walshe appears to be very strong.
Yes. Lisa and Rick, I want to go back to one of the pretrial hearings. I'm sure you both remember this. This was one of the moments where the prosecutor gave us a little sampling of the Google searches this guy did. Yeah. Let's take a look.
How long before a body starts to smell? At 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m., he searched how to embalm a body. At 5:47 a.m., 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to.
Oh, the digital footprint, the digital footprint. Rick Grundy, how damning are these text messages in your view?
I think my favorite there is how to get rid of a dead body if you have to. So I read into that Brian had to at that particular point in time. Even in a situation like this where you may try and say, well, he knew the focus was on him and he started Googling things, the timestamps are hours after this woman was last seen alive. And not only did they have evidence of this hacksaw, they have video of him purchasing the hacksaw and 100 garbage bags and rags to clean up. Again, it just piles one upon the other. You've got brick after brick after brick to build a solid wall here.
Yeah, you really do with this guy. Lisa, we know recently he was in a mental institution. There was a diagnosis of incompetency. Now he's competent again. And it's interesting, it all came right after that incident in the Norfolk County Jail where he was shanked. Survived, obviously, but still he was attacked. And then suddenly the incompetency came. Are you expecting any issues with competency to arise with him here and now that we're getting really on the eve of the trial?
It really doesn't seem like it, right? The timing is a little suspicious, and it looks like that was a little diversionary tactic that probably, well, it looks like it didn't go over at all. And so I don't think that there's much of a challenge there because this is something that probably would have come up earlier in the case in terms of his fitness to stand trial. So it looked a little suspicious with respect to the time, and he was given, it looks like he was given a pretty extensive examination, and he was found fit to stand trial, so I don't think there's going to be much that they can go on. Again, they're trying everything that they can. Let's not also forget there was a video of him allegedly, or someone disposing of large garbage bags around the time of that. So as Brian, excuse me, as the, he mentioned, Rick, sorry, Rick mentioned that there is a mound of evidence that has appeared for him, and so they've got a pretty tall order to try and overcome.
Yeah, all this evidence about the conduct after the fact. Rick Grundy, having been a prosecutor, served in that role for many years. There are some people, his defense team being some of those people, say, oh, well, we don't have on his body, so look out. What case do we have? What do you say to that, Rick?
Well, I'll remind them that it was approximately 20 years ago that the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office had a prosecution where the first person in Massachusetts was convicted of first-degree murder without a body, defendant by the name of Joseph Romano, who killed his wife and disposed of her body using a saw blade, an electric saw that actually pulled her DNA into the casing of that saw. So there's a lot of ways to prove that a person is deceased. In this situation, we have various dumpsters from all the way from the South Shore of Massachusetts to the North Shore of Massachusetts, where Mommy Dearest lived, that they recovered items which have DNA tested positive for the victim. And you have a mom with 3 young children that has never been seen before. The defendant indicated that she got on a plane. There's no record of that plane. Again, it's thrown up in the air, but it's just, there's nowhere to land. The attorney in this is Larry Tipton, who's a very experienced in it. And I think, remember, there's a difference between competency and not guilty by insanity. And he's made a decision not to go the way of not guilty by insanity because he appreciates the fact that there's planning and lots of evidence of it. And that's just a way to put something forth in a trial when there's nowhere else to go. They're going to try and go somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely. A really great insight. We have to leave it there for the moment, and we have to let you get off to court. You've got cases to win. Rick Grundy, thank you so much. Friends at home, stay with us. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next for you on Opening Statement.
I want to begin by expressing my deepest sympathies to the family and loved ones of Maria Florinda Rios Perez. We have determined that Curt Andersen's actions do not fall within the legal protections provided by the Indiana Stand Your Ground law.
An Indiana homeowner accused of shooting a cleaning lady who went to the wrong house. So how strong is this Stand Your Ground defense? We'll talk about it. Plus, we're talking about the alleged lip filler child killer case and the ideal jurors for her upcoming trial.
The Court TV podcast will return.
My clients just want justice for Maria. They just want to see justice be done. And however that comes and whatever form that comes in, they are willing to be patient with the process.
Family and friends of a cleaning lady in Indiana are calling for justice this morning. This as prosecutors are announcing criminal charges against the man who fired the fatal shot. 32-year-old Maria Florinda Rios Perez de Velasquez was shot and killed earlier this month with a single gunshot wound to her head. This after she mistakenly tried to go into the wrong home to do a house cleaning. According to police, the suspect is this guy. This is Curt Andersen. Police say he fired the shot from the inside of his home, firing through his own front door. Well, on Monday, Andersen was charged with voluntary manslaughter.
It is vitally important for the citizens of Boone County to understand that our decision today in no way should be interpreted as a challenge to Indiana Stand Your Ground law or a person's right to self-defense. We respect those laws, believe in those laws, and will uphold those laws. Based upon the particular evidence and circumstances of this case, we have determined that Curt Andersen's actions do not fall within the legal protections provided by the Indiana Stand Your Ground law.
Andersen's attorney responded with this statement saying, quote, "We believe Mr. Andersen had every reason to believe that his actions were absolutely necessary and fully justified at the time," saying that Indiana's castle doctrine clearly applies in this case under the state self-defense laws. So the question we're asking this morning, how strong will this Stand Your Ground defense be? Let's talk about it. Still with me in the studio, Attorney Lisa Bonner, and joining us remotely, Attorney Matt Timpanic. Matt, I'm going to begin with you, please, as you're in Florida and have a lot of experience as prosecutor and defense attorney with these types of cases, these Stand Your Ground cases, and we know Florida has some of the most liberal Stand Your Ground laws on the books in our country. So what do you make of the facts of this case and whether that defense is going to hold water?
It's going to be interesting because you think about this type of situation. The cleaning lady showed up to the wrong house and she was tragically, fatally killed. It's in Stand Your Ground laws, it depends what the individual was thinking at the time of the incident, what the facts and circumstances were when they fired the gun. Did that individual fear that their life was in imminent danger? Here in Florida, there's an extra step, which requires the prosecution to prove it wasn't Stand Your Ground before actually proceeding to trial. So when you hear the facts, you're like, yeah, no, that doesn't sound that it's going to hold water, that she showed up to the wrong house, she got shot. But it's how the defendant actually perceived that individual when they fired it. So it's not as cut and dry, and it's definitely going to be heavily litigated as this process goes forward.
Yeah, Matt, I think you hit the nail right on the head there, as you said. The details are going to be everything here. We know Indiana, Lisa, one of 31 states in America with these stand your ground laws that allow these homeowners to use deadly force to try to stop someone from unlawfully entering their home. But here, police say that there's no evidence that Florinda actually entered the home before she was shot. She was outside of it. I'd love your thoughts, please, Lisa.
That is crucial. The defendant has to show that he reasonably believed that the use of deadly force was necessary in order to neutralize the situation here. This was a cleaning lady who arrived with bucket and mop on the front door and knocked on the door. It is not like she tried to forcibly enter, like she was banging on the door, or any other instances or evidence that shows that he could have reasonably believed that she was going to break into his house and pose a threat to his person and his home. And that is going to be crucial. Were the facts presented, and did he reasonably believe that? And it doesn't seem like that, because there was no attempt at forced entry. It was a knock at the door.
Right.
And it appears to be shoot first, ask questions later. That's what it looks like being. Of course, they will litigate this, but the facts at this point do not seem to rise to the level of a stand your ground case.
Lisa, thank you for that. Yeah, you got me thinking as we're talking about this, how we're looking at her behavior, right? As you said, she's coming with cleaning supplies. She's part of a crew. There were other people there, as you and Matt know. Her husband was one of the other people, so sadly witnessing his wife being shot and killed. There aren't any threats, any threatening behavior. Matt, also this homeowner, wouldn't you think most people would just look out the window? Like, if I'm not expecting someone to come to my house and my doorbell ring, like, I'm gonna look out the window and see, oh, so here's a nice lady with cleaning supplies. Like, maybe she's at the wrong place. Your thoughts, Matt, about the other facts that are absent here, an absence of threats, and an absence of anything that seemed menacing.
So one of the things they're going to look at is how the house is actually constructed, especially the front door. Is there a hole where the individual could look through to see who is at the door? Did that individual have a history that his house had previously been broken into or robbed? It doesn't sound like at that time of day that would have happened when a cleaning lady will show up. So you think it's like, what is a reasonable person going to do? Most likely, like you said, they're either going to look out the window or they're going to look through the peephole to see that, okay, whether or not that individual at the door is somebody who has a license, an invitee to come into the residence. My feeling is that it does. And you're doing that as like, what does a reasonable person do? Probably not shoot the person at the door without actually knowing that there's a threat. I think that we had a Florida case where a woman did that recently, where it was, there was back and forth, neighborly disputes, and that was found to not be stand your ground. It was found to be voluntary manslaughter. And unless there's different facts in this case that haven't come to light, I think it's going to be the same result.
Mm-hmm. Great points, Matt. So we know this defendant, Curt Andersen, is looking at another court date coming up and in custody in the meantime, the judge said. So if he's found guilty, he's looking at up to 10 to 30 years. 30 is the maximum penalty for the crime he's charged with. We're wondering, should he be given a bond? Let's talk about that. Should this guy be out on bond while he's awaiting trial? Now, unfortunately, we don't have access to his criminal history, but for the sake of our discussion, Lisa, this morning, let's just assume he has no criminal history. Let's just assume he's got nothing in his past that's criminal. Let's assume, he owns firearms lawfully. What do you say? Should the judge give him bond?
Well, we have to also look at other factors. Is he a flight risk? Is he a danger to society? So that is something else that the judge would take into consideration. And we really don't know that, but it does appear that his behavior was a bit unreasonable, but that's not going to be enough in the judge's estimation just to deny him bond. You do have to look at the totality of the circumstances in terms of whether or not his previous criminal history Is he a flight risk? Does he own that home, for instance? Is there going to be reason for him to stay in the state? So you have to look at all of those. So it's a little bit like reading the tea leaves at this point when we don't necessarily have enough information. But if all of those things, if he does own a home, he does not have any previous convictions or felony history or anything of that instance, the judge might put enough of a bond on him where he would, with an ankle monitor, that he would probably be entitled to bond.
Matt, I want to ask you, harken back to your time as a prosecutor or even in private practice. You do criminal defense work now in the private sector. Have you ever had a case where somebody mistakenly goes into someone else's residence or a place where it's total mistake and you have to sort it out and resolve it? Have you ever had something like this crop up?
Yes, that happens a lot more than you think, especially in cases where individuals walk into houses thinking that they are their own home, and it turns out they're not, especially in communities where houses all look the same. An individual is maybe intoxicated and they can't actually see the house numbers. One of the things I wanted to get back to the bond situation. One of the things the judge would also consider is whether or not that individual would pose a danger to the community. And with a firearm being involved in this individual shooting somebody who was just knocking at the door, that a judge would probably have a hard time thinking that individual did not pose a threat to the community, which, given what is seen in the facts and circumstances, he probably does.
Yeah, really good point to end on. Matt Timpanek, thank you so much for that. So here's what we have to do. We have to leave it here for now. This case getting a lot of traction, and whenever this gentleman is back in court, you better believe it, we're going to be following this case, and our heart breaks for Florinda's family and friends who loved her so much. This is really, really a sad one. We'll hit a break. When we come back, a mother accused of killing her child by leaving him in a hot car while getting lip filler. We're talking about who is her perfect jury. And home invasion turns deadly in Georgia, but a man accused of brutally killing a couple inside the home is on trial, and his brother was accused in a separate homicide case. Two brothers, two different homicide cases. Is this a coincidence? That's coming up.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Well, welcome back. This morning, our spotlight shines on the mother facing murder charges in the lip filler child killer case. That's the branding we've got for this one at Court TV. This is the defendant, Maya Hernandez. The allegations against her are that she left her 1- and 3-year-old sons strapped into their car seats while she went inside a doctor's office to receive lip filler injections. Their 1-year-old baby boy died, little Emilio. Now, Hernandez said that she left the air conditioning on in her car. Police confirmed that she did, but the car shuts off automatically an hour later. So that's where the problem happened, and the temperatures were sweltering. Her defense attorney says that this is negligence at best, and that Ms. Hernandez made a, quote, difficult parenting choice.
There's a human need to protect children and to care for children. But the fact of the matter is she's still a child herself. She's barely 20. You don't stop becoming a child when you turn 18. It's a tragic situation, and she's incredibly sad.
Now, the older son, thank goodness, survived. Jury selection was supposed to start today, and we just got information that they've pushed it back until next month. So let's talk about what type of jurors the state's going to be looking for and who Maya Hernandez is going to be looking for. Let's bring in jury consultant and human behavior expert, Susan Constantine. Susan, good morning to you. All right, let's start with the defense, if you don't mind, please. I think a lot of people thinking about this young defendant, mother, and who she may need on this jury. What do you say, please?
Well, I think that she's going to need people that are probably closer to her age group, those that are involved in social media. They like all the glam stuff, right? So there are people that are interested in the way their appearance is, but also maybe single parents with that without a spouse, you know, that they're juggling their schedules, they're multitaskers, they don't really have necessarily a backup plan. And also those people that maybe would be considered that will give you a second chance, like the benefit of the doubt, like that was a bad decision. However, did it raise to the level of, was she negligent? Well, she had already admitted that what she did was wrong, of course, that she was negligent, but therefore, are they types of jurors that might be counselors or mental health workers that might consider some sort of mental illness or even consider her age as being a factor?
Oh, all good points. All right, Susan, let's switch it up. Looking at this from the prosecution standpoint, who do you like on your jury?
Yeah. So one of the things I'd like to share with you, Julie, my deselection doesn't start during voir dire. It starts before that, when actually the judge is talking about the charges. At that point, I'm looking for anomalies that are in the courtroom. I'm looking for jurors that are already showing a grimace, a smirk, a contempt or disgust expression, or feeling uncomfortable. So that's where I'm going to hone in on. Of course, we know that once they're already going through deselection, but these are the types of people I would be honing out, and I'd be putting them on my list. But when I'm talking about demographic factors, I'm looking for parents with young children, most likely married. They're conservative. They're more law-abiding citizens. These could be, child care teachers, or maybe they could be PTA moms, or anyone in the medical field, and also ER nurses or even retired officers. I'm looking for stricter people. I'm looking for those no nonsense. And literally, you can pick them out when you're in the jury, when you're looking at jurors. I for the defense, I may not be looking for someone that's perfectly coiffed. I might be looking ones that are a little bit more open-minded or not as concerned about details. Now, in the prosecution, I'm looking for those that are very detailed, more fastidious. Even when they walk into the room, when they sit down, do they know where they're going? Are they more direct? Are they types of people that are like supervisors, managers, and those that can actually make a tough decision when it comes to prosecution?
Mm-hmm. Susan, I want to play a clip for you. This is just heartbreaking. Little baby Emilio's grandma reacting to the horrific news.
I couldn't stop screaming. I just kept picturing them alone. I can't even imagine what they went through. They were strapped in their car seats. They couldn't even get up to save themselves. She literally locked them in their car seats and shut the doors.
Katie Martinez there again, little baby Emilio's grandma. Susan, speaking of grandmas and moms, do you want those people on your jury if you're Maya Hernandez, or do you look to eliminate them?
I look to eliminate them if I were on the defense side, because, those grandmother types, those are the ones that are the caretakers, right? Those are the ones that, they're not going out and having these types of services done. At least a lot of them are not. So these are the more mothering types of individuals. I wouldn't want them on the defense side. I'd want them closer to her age group that would kind of look at this as like, well, that was really a stupid mistake, but, it was kind of, overplayed. However, how horrendous it was. So how do you actually sift them out? And that's the clever part of voir dire. You have to ask questions so you can understand their beliefs and their attitudes about life and about these types of situations. And that will give me insight of who I'm going to question more. So, it's like an art and a science at the same time, Julie. It's not like just a specific list of jurors. Now, I do go in and I have my checklist of what I would be looking for. But that can all change, as you know, once you're in the courtroom, because all they need to do is say one thing and they're done.
Right.
Right?
You're so right, my friend. Oh, yeah. And sometimes a feeling you get, right? When you pick a jury, sometimes you just can't put your finger, but if somebody gives you bad energy and you just have that feeling of, something's off, I always say go with your gut. Yes. When I teach trial, go with your gut. If somebody doesn't feel well to you sitting next to you in that room, they're not going to be good looking at you in that jury box. Susan, I have to ask you, I'd love to ask how you like to dress, defendants for different trials. How would you dress Maya Hernandez if her team, and they should hire you?
Sure. Yeah, first of all, I'd make her look responsible. I wouldn't be putting her in the soft little sweater. I think that's kind of overplayed for her. I want her to look like she makes good decisions most of the time, and this was the one time where she didn't. So I'm going to dress her a little bit differently. I'll still use soft fabrics. As you know, I'm a proponent for wearing ivory and lighter colors and pastels, but I might pair it up with something that's navy, something that's going to make her look like she she's more truthful and also more responsible. So I don't want her in anything that's flashy, no bright colors, too fashionable. I don't want to do it. I want to keep her super conservative.
Mm-hmm. And then how about the lips? Because you know the jury's going to be looking at her lips. Do you have her wear like a more muted lipstick or something to draw less attention?
Well, yeah, because the brighter colors, of course, is going to bring attention to her lips. And especially when they're already full, you don't want to make them look like they're fuller. So I would really downplay them. In fact, what I would do is underline the lips. So I wouldn't, and you know these tricks as being a woman, we wouldn't go up around the edges or make them look fuller. I'm actually going to make the lips look smaller. So I would do that and use more of a nude color, something that blends more into her skin tone. So therefore, it's not the focus.
Oh, that's so smart. All the ladies watching right know what you're talking about, the underlining, because more often we overline, right? And, you know, the plump look is in, right? So I see what you're saying. Take that foundation over your natural lip line a little more to cover it up. Great insight. We got to leave it there for now. Susan Constantine, we always love having you on this show. Thank you so much. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next on Opening Statements. We're going to Georgia. A man is on trial accused of murdering his 2 neighbors. And guess what? His brother was accused in a different murder case. Is this coincidence? Something going on in this family? We'll talk about it next.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
The murder trial for a Georgia man accused of killing his new neighbors resumes in just a couple of minutes. Justin and Amber Hicks and their 2-year-old son moved into their new home in Cobb County, Georgia in September of 2021. This is a picture of them. 73 days later, they were murdered, each of them shot 3 times. The killer left their 2-year-old son, Jacob, unharmed. And police estimate little Jacob was home alone in the house for several hours. Well, on Monday, Justin Hicks' father took the stand.
As I peeked in, I saw him.
Take your time. Take your time.
I saw that they weren't okay. And when I saw that, I'd already kind of got into cop mode.
Oh my gosh, this is so awful. So the defendant is 22-year-old Matthew Lance. And here's a twist. Months before these killings, his brother, Austin Lance, fatally stabbed a Pentagon police officer. And then he shot and killed himself with the officer's gun. Now, the 2 brothers are accused in 2 homicides. Coincidence or not? Let's talk about this. Let's bring back in our legal analyst guests. In the studio with me, Lisa Bonner. Joining me remotely, Matt Timpanek. Lisa, I'll start with you. Your thoughts when you hear that both of these brothers were involved in homicides, allegedly?
Well, it certainly demonstrates that both of them have a very violent propensity for violence. That's one thing. And then you start to look at, is it environment or is it heredity? Because of the situation that both of them have been involved in break-ins and homicides, and this alleged homicides. I want to be clear about that. But it does seem to shed some light that they either have had mental illness in their family, or they were raised in a environment of violence, but it does seem to be some kind of common thread as opposed to just being more coincidental.
Right. Yeah, if all these facts as reported by police are true, these are some bad guys. If what police say in both of these cases is true, we're talking about 2 real bad, violent guys here. Matt Timpanek, your thoughts on that being coincidental or not?
I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It is, what you hear is sadistic, violent, unforgivable, and just downright disgusting. This guy allegedly left a young child to fend the rest of his life without his parents. People brought him into the world, loved him. All because what? A home invasion, a thrill kill, I don't know what. I can just tell you, when it gets closer to trial, whatever mitigation he potentially has, a jury's not going to care. I really don't even think the judge is going to care come sentencing. It's either going to end, if convicted, either in a death sentence or a life without parole situation. The facts are just, the allegations, I should say, are just too aggravating for any other result.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, it's interesting this is not a death penalty case. Because you raise a really great point, Matt. It sure could be on these facts. Little Jacob, the 2-year-old at the time, Lisa, he's 6 years old now, being raised by the man we saw in the clip that we started this segment with. That's his grandpa. So his grandma and his grandpa are raising him. Thank goodness he has them, but how sad without his parents, right?
It's very sad, and certainly the way that they found the little boy. The boy was found very close and snuggled up to his parents with the toys around him, and it seems to be that he was maybe trying to wake his parents up to play with them, and he knew something was wrong. At that age, they're a toddler, and they do know, but of course they don't have the ability to get up and use the phone at that age. But from the way that the little boy was found and the evidence around it, it is certainly tragic and heartbreaking, and you do hope and pray that this little boy does not have any memories of this, because if there is that family threat of violence and he's already is predisposed perhaps to that. And so you just want to do everything you can and love up on this little kid and just make sure that he has a loving life. And his grandparents certainly look like they are the ones who are stepping up to the plate and really, really helping them.
You were right, Lisa. Yeah, they look like wonderful people. And what a horrible tragedy they've been put through. And they must have so much strength to be able to pick up those pieces, go through that trauma, and then help Jacob live his best life. Matt Timpanic, let me ask you about the type of trial we're seeing here. A bench trial, not a jury trial. Your thoughts on that?
Do a bench trial over a jury trial is you want somebody who's going to be completely unbiased about the facts and circumstances. A jury is not going to be unbiased. Based on these allegations, no jury is not going to want to jump through the jury box right at the defendant himself. A judge isn't like that. Judge has been trained as a lawyer usually for many years and has heard horrible things, maybe not to this level, but pretty similar in level. So when you think about how, considering the facts and evidence, an individual who is highly trained to be able to set personal beliefs aside and be able to rule based on the facts and evidence, that's the only reason you ever do a bench trial.
Right. Yeah, it just kind of surprises me. Does it surprise you, Matt, that this defendant would go that way? That he wouldn't, for the reasons you said, so let me pick a jury and just try my luck here.
Not a chance. This is not a case where you would want to have a jury, because a jury, especially people who are grandparents, hearing that testimony, if you're the attorney for the defendant, you're like, I can't have a grandparent on the jury having to hear this, because that is all of their worst nightmares, having to raise their grandchildren because their children are no longer on this earth. So you need the only individual who could potentially be able to set those feelings aside is a judge. And that's the only reason they did a bench trial. And that's the only reason almost anybody ever does a bench trial.
We have just maybe about a minute left. Let's talk about the likelihood of this defendant taking the stand. He had no prior criminal record before this case that he picked up. Lisa, what are the odds you think he testifies?
100 to 1 that he does not. Because once you put a defendant on the stand, everything is open for questioning. His life, his prior acts, his prior bad acts, and you get a chance to cross-examine him. You get a chance to ask them about where he was. Everything is on the plate for questioning. And as we just talked about, you do not want to give any type of credence to anything he has to say, so there's no way that he will take the stand.
Early prediction, Lisa, thank you. All right, here's what we're going to do. We see some movement in the courtroom, and so we've got to thank you at home for watching Opening Statements. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.